The moment where all of the retailers put audiobooks really forward and focused in their merchandising efforts. And we work with a lot of retailers to get great placement for authors. So we always have a call for entries. We always do something fun as well. We did a series of live author events last year, which were hour-long video interviews with some of the great minds in audiobook marketing. And some of them are floating around here today. I know I saw Jamie Dages this morning, and there's a couple others. So these are all recorded on YouTube. If you're looking for some tactical advice from your peers on how they found success with audiobook marketing, these are great resources. We've also launched Marketplace, which is a whole new way to make audiobooks. We've always had one way that is kind of a hand-holding, white glove service to make audiobooks. Now you can actually search for your narrators in the pool of narrators, and you can use our workflow tools totally free to make an audiobook. You're still going to pay the narrator their fee, but we're not charging any markup or fee for our services there. And we've added a lot of features since we launched earlier this year. We've added production reviews, we've added identity verification, so you know the person that you are hiring is actually the person whose name is on the profile. And we're working on a lot of mobile optimization, so it's easier to do things on your phone. Okay, that's enough about who we are and what we do. I want to share with you some audiobook insights. This is from aggregated data that we have. We used to share this in a report on a blog, but this year we thought, let's save this so it's a little more special, and we can share it with conference audiences. So if you want to take any pictures of these slides, you're welcome to, or I'm sure the recording will be there too. But I'm going to go pretty fast through these because I don't want to spend too much time on them. This is the breakdown of units sold across our entire catalog. You'll notice, and this is on the top without a price promotion, and on the bottom with a price promotion, okay? So on the top, it's pretty evenly split between library sales, retail subscription sales, and a la carte sales. But when you bring in the factor of a price promotion, which can really boost the number of units you're selling, and you can only do those price promotions on retail a la carte, look at how much that affects the unit sales on that business model, almost up 10% for sales that have a promotion. Our top three genres in terms of growth, we saw mystery thriller growing 180%, romance doubling, 100% growth. Romance is still our top genre, but in terms of growth, we're seeing a lot of nice movement in mystery thriller. And then fantasy up 74%. This is kind of an interesting slide. This is 2021 data. So you can see we're still deep in the pandemic here. We see a lot of niche genres that had big growth, like family life, children's health, bedtime and dreams, like people spending a lot more time at home with their families, right? And my favorite one is on the left, chess. We're going to talk about this a little bit more, but I think everybody knows why chess was a big deal, right? It's because of one Netflix show that hit, Queen's Gambit, and it brought this niche genre into the forefront of a lot of people's minds. They enjoyed the show, and they went looking for more content that could satisfy that need, right? We're going to talk about that a little bit more later. One of the most common questions I always get is like, hey, I've never had to price my audiobook before, what do I do? So this is not what we recommend necessarily, though it's influenced by that. This is what authors are actually choosing for their book's price by length. So 0 to 3 hours, they're like sub $5, and 11 more hours, you see, they're inching up to $18.75. It's important to note that if your only frame of reference is the price that Audible has set for you, that's a great price for a credit subscription model where somebody's paying $15 for a token, they're looking for value, right? And they're wanting to see like, oh, I paid $15 for this, and it says it's 22, like that's a great feeling. But when you're outside of that business model, it's important to think differently. That you're not competing against that $15 benchmark there. When people discount their book, this is about how much they discount it. You'll see the discounts are far more steep percentage-wise when you get really high up. So for an over $20 book, it's being discounted down to under $5, right? So they're taking an average discount of $29 off because not many books sit at $20. If they're up at that much, they're usually a box set. They're usually like $30, $40, $50, which is why that one might look a little confusing. And that's it for the stats because I like to talk about the future more than the past. So. We will have questions at the end. I will make sure that we save some time at the end. Okay, so you came to a conference to learn about the future. Let's talk about it. Promise this is not going to be a Spotify commercial, but Spotify is a big deal, and they're going to change the industry in a big way. So I do want to talk about them. The APA stats say 46% of adults 18 and up that listen to an audiobook. How many of those do you think identify as readers? Trying a book, an audiobook, is different than identifying yourself as a reader, right? And think in the same vein, how many people would say, I like music, or I don't like music, right? Like that's just, everybody likes music. And that's the audience that Spotify has, which is why this is so exciting. A lot of people are about to try their first audiobook ever. Spotify has 433 million global monthly users. That's a lot of users if you're not familiar with how big that number is. And the cool thing is those users are picking up an app to listen to music or to listen to podcasts today. And they're going to be introduced to audiobooks, even if they don't think they like audiobooks. So think about every other audiobook app out there. It is just for listening to audiobooks. You have to have the intention of feeling like a reader who downloads an audiobook app and pays for an audiobook subscription and opens up your app to listen to a book. Well, that's great, but that's not going to grow the market, right? I don't want to just shuffle those users over to Spotify. I want to introduce millions, hundreds of millions of users who think they don't like audiobooks, but know they like stories because they like podcasts, and introduce them to how cool audiobooks are. So we have a platform and an app that has three things all in one app. You might open it for music, you might open it for podcasts, you probably don't open it up for audiobooks yet, soon you will, and that's really powerful. And you as a creator, an author, should be thinking about what can I do differently to leverage this unique audience, because it's different from any audience you've had before. I have a couple ideas. I hate slides like this, so I apologize. But I'm only going to pick out a couple here because there's some interesting things, and Queen's Gambit is like, this is where this is going to tie in a little bit here. But if you think about a platform that has both audiobooks and podcasts, and maybe you don't want to start a podcast because you think it's like an interview show and it's a big commitment and everything, but think about where the culture is going. Think about where the attention is, and think about how you can have, I like to call it a vampire attack, on where all of the attention is, right? So one example of this is to find a interesting TV show, movie that's being released in your genre that you can kind of talk about. And somebody who finishes that show is going to be maybe looking for more content that can satisfy them, right? Like Queen's Gambit is over and I want more chess content. Well, how are you going to monopolize on that attention? Because if you start a podcast where you're just doing a limited series where I'm just going to say, hey, I'm going to analyze all the chess moves in season 1, or I'm going to talk about the romance movie of the year or whatever, you're going to talk about, well, here's how I would have done that. Here's how I think the romance could have gone. Here's alternate storylines for this. You can use your craft of writing and storytelling in alternate ways to capture attention. And when you do that, you're building your brand, which will lead back to book sales, right? So leverage your expertise in the podcast field. The barrier for entry for podcasts is really low. It's really easy to start a podcast, and you can experiment for almost nothing, like in your hotel room tonight with your MacBook speakers and microphone. I want to talk quickly about some different types of discovery in the audiobook world, because breakout successes come from a new audience, right? And so there's a couple different types of discovery that we see in the audiobook world today. One is Chirp. If you're not familiar with Chirp, they're a fantastic service. It's a book club company, and they kind of took their model for book club feature deals and applied it to audiobooks. But instead of linking out to other retailers, they are the retailer here. Okay, so they have a captive audience, email subscribers that they email daily deals for audiobooks, right? And very, very impactful. No upfront cost to the author to run a Chirp featured deal, which is awesome. They take a little cut of royalties on the other side when you get a deal, but there's nothing upfront, unlike a book club featured deal. And this is price-motivated discovery, right? This is consumers who are looking for a deal, and they sign up for a deal website. And that's a great way to introduce yourself to some new readers that you may not otherwise have found. There's also TikTok, which we know is being bigger and bigger for book discovery. And this is like social proof and hook-motivated discovery, right? So it's either book talkers vouching for your book, the social proof aspect, or it's you getting someone hooked on the juiciest bit of your story and making them yearn for more and going to find your book to satisfy that. And then there's Spotify, which is this format bridging discovery, right? And this should be exciting because we have this one app where people are opening it up for music, for podcasts, and they're going to start having audiobooks served to them. And the recommendation engine on this is interesting too, right? Because we can recommend audiobooks to people based on what podcasts they listen to, or even what music they listen to. I want to hammer home that Spotify's kind of secret sauce, right, is personalization. And while the store today is merchandised by humans, and it's not algorithmically curated, there's a future where that is likely to happen. And so I really want you to focus on what you can do in the short term to make sure when those algorithms kick in, your content is tickling those algorithms in the right way. I think I hit on this enough, so okay, so it's all about the hook, right? It's all about thinking about your content differently so that you're thinking about how you're hooking people and drawing them in, and thinking about the different types of consumers that you're going to do this. If you think about TikTok and the hook, right? How many times have you heard 15 seconds of a song on TikTok? You're like, no, I don't need to listen to that. I've heard enough, right? It doesn't. Hearing the best 15 seconds does not ruin the song for you. It makes you want to experience the full song even more. Think about your book marketing on TikTok the same way. How are you giving them the best 15 seconds of the book so they can't help but want more? I want to change gears from marketing a little bit to the actual content of your books, because I think it's time to start thinking about the length of audiobooks quite differently to how we have been in the past. Raise your hand if you think attention spans are getting longer. The average TikTok is 21 to 34 seconds, but in my experience, you got about half a second before I scroll past you. Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, they're all going in the same direction, right? So if you thought attention spans were short a few years ago, just look at them now. But everybody in this room are the creators of the longest form entertainment media in existence, okay? You want to watch all the Harry Potter movies, it's going to take you 20 hours, but if you want to read them, it's going to take you more than double that. Game of Thrones, watch all 8 seasons, that's 70 hours. But if you want to read it and the books aren't even finished yet, that's 96 hours, right? I can't think of a longer form of entertainment media, and we are in an age where attention spans continue to get shorter and shorter. Is this making you uncomfortable? Some of you may say, but Will, this has been working, right? Box sets, and the longer I put a box set of books on Audible, the better it does, right? So that's the credit model. I don't think that's the model of the future. Although it's been the dominant model, I want to look at the future of this conference and adapt and innovate. So let's stop writing for the credit model, okay? It is not over yet, it's coming to an end. There's more than one business model out there today. In my humble opinion, this isn't the best one. It's not the one that I think is going to win. I think you will win by thinking about how to leverage different business models with different types of content. The industry's changing, business models are changing, consumers are changing too. So what's the future? The future is writing for engagement. It's not about length, it's not about raw sales. It's about engagement and satisfaction for the customer. For a really long time, algorithms that suggested books to you really only had 2 inputs, which was like sales data, how many people bought your book, and what's the rating, right? Like that's how satisfied they were. But it's going to get a lot more complex, it's going to get a lot more intricate, and the way that you can win is by making sure your readers have a great experience with your audiobook. Let's talk about the audiobook experience today. This is what an audiobook looks like. If we agree that attention spans are getting shorter, and this is a 10-hour book, how many people do you think read the entire book in one sitting? Nobody. If you're lucky, they might do it in 10 sittings, right? An hour at a time or something like that. But look at the structure of the book. How is this helping anybody? If you have a complex book with complex stories and complex characters, and somebody's stopping 10 times and maybe waiting a week or 2 before they pick the book up again, how likely is it that they're going to be frustrated when they pick that book back up? If they're frustrated, do you think that they're going to power through? It's a little harder to find your place in an audiobook than a paperback book where you can kind of like, flip back, or an ebook where you can kind of page back. It's a little harder to find your bearings in an audiobook. But everyone is just taking their straight manuscript and having it narrated into an audiobook, not thinking about this engagement and this interruption. There's actually a lot of readers out there who say, like, if there's too many characters or if the story's too complex, like, I just can't do audio. I'd rather do another format, right? Well, we want to convert them into audio listeners. And I'm not saying don't write complex stories. I'm saying, how can you change the way you're thinking about your content to help them more, right? Because you're going to stand out if you do that. Let's look at how television and podcasts do this, right? This is every episode. Think of this as the chapter, where you got this cold open to like hook them in. Then you got your credits. Then you're going to recap what they need to know to really appreciate this segment of the story. Then you tell the story. Then you have your closing credits, and then you have your next episode or teaser to pull them in to make sure that they want to pick up that next episode. If you've ever listened to Serial, the podcast that just went crazy 8 years ago, they did this brilliantly. And audiobooks aren't doing it, and I don't know why. What if you had a Take Your Time edition of your book? Now you have two things to sell. One's just a standard book, and the other is the Take Your Time version, where in between every chapter, you've written something that recaps what you need to know before the next chapter. Easy to skip. You don't need any native support from any platform to do this. Anybody could do this today. I've never seen it done. You could also Cliff Notes your own book and take all of those before you reads and put them into a podcast that's a free feed for someone to have kind of side by side and reference whenever they need it. And you can do the same thing with the series. In addition, before you read book 2, here's the recap you need to know. It's all about engagement and satisfaction, right? And if you do this, you're going to get series read-through, too. So I want everybody to think about, how do you plan for interruptions in your content? How do you consider the listener's experience so you make sure they have a great experience? True engagement wins you fans, and it tickles the algorithms, too. So the other angle to this is interactivity. How can you get people to not just enjoy the book, but maybe go back into it a few times? Go searching for clues, go searching for a scene that they want to experience again. How do you have those repeat listens to even parts of the book? How can you inspire that? How can you hide Easter eggs? How can you reward people with a little extra bonus of the story that they only understand if they follow the entire arc all the way through? I would encourage you to really find superfans, and that's not what this is about. If you are gating a superfan community with a quiz that's really hard, you would have trouble answering the questions. You know they're really dedicated readers if they can pass these quiz, right? You should be hiding things that are only in the audiobook and things that are only in the ebook. You should be thinking about how can I get people who are really into this to experience it in every single way. None of that is audiobook specific, but it's when you consider that you have multiple formats, you don't just have to copy paste your ebook into your audiobook manuscript and keep it exactly the same. You can hide some fun stuff in there too. I want to tell you a story, one of my favorite stories from a book by Chip and Dan Heath called The Power of Moments. Because I think being memorable as an author and making your story memorable is probably one of the best ways that you can get listener engagement and satisfaction. Has anybody heard the story of the Magic Castle Hotel in Los Angeles? You're going to, hopefully I told this right then. The Magic Castle Hotel in Los Angeles is not the best hotel in Los Angeles, okay? It's a couple stories, the paint is peeling. It's a solidly 3-star hotel. But it is consistently ranked as one of the highest rated hotels in all of Los Angeles. How can that be? Well, they did one thing different from any other hotel that I've ever heard of. They had a popsicle hotline. So when you're at the pool with your kids, there's a red telephone next to the pool. And if you go over there and you pick it up, the concierge says, popsicle hotline. And you tell them how many popsicles you want, and then they come out with a silver platter and a white glove and deliver you popsicles poolside. How much do you think that cost them? the cost of a white glove and 20 cents a popsicle, right? And a concierge who's already on staff, they're making moments. They're making moments you will not forget. So when you go home, you don't remember the peeling paint. You don't remember that weird smell in the corner of the lobby. You remember the popsicle hotline, and you remember the smiles on your kids' faces when they had the popsicle delivered to them, right? That's what I want you thinking about. Those are the moments that we need to inspire in our stories, and using your audiobook as a unique property to help make those moments is where you win. You should celebrate the readers who finished the book in some way. Easter eggs are great. Side characters, stories, those are great. Like, give them some extra satisfaction that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And think shorter. Not just because shorter content works in different business models, but people who don't identify as book readers, the more books they finish, the closer they become to identifying as a reader, right? So the shorter your books are, the faster they finish them, the more books they finish. And all of a sudden they say like, oh wow, I read 10 books this year. Maybe I am a reader, right? That's the way, we want to be the reason that someone turns into a reader, and I think shorter books can help with that. And finally, if you think about this content, I've talked a couple times about Spotify as an app where you got music lovers and podcast lovers who are going to be introduced to audiobooks for the first time. This is another reason to think short, because albums are about an hour long. Podcasts are usually not longer than 2 hours. And so if you're trying to convert those people into audiobook lovers, throwing a 12-hour audiobook at them might not be the best way to make them comfortable with that. And remember, we're not trying to take market share from another player here. We're trying to grow the market by hundreds of millions of new listeners to the audiobook format. We have to think a little differently on how we do that. And if you're early to this, you are going to have the outsized benefit of being early in a platform that's going to grow the market. It's not interesting to just move readers from one platform to another. It is interesting to bring 100 million people who didn't think they liked audiobooks to audiobooks. All right, I'm gonna end with this one story, and then we'll have a little time for Q&A. We're gonna talk about this dude here, this old dude from the 1920s. His name is Edward Bernays. Is anybody familiar with this name? Edward Bernays is credited as the godfather of PR, inventing PR as a discipline that never existed before. And one of my favorite stories about him is how he was hired by a bunch of book publishers in the 1920s, right after the stock market collapsed. They said, sales are not good, can you help us? And the way he approached it was brilliant. What he did was there was a few people who made it out okay at the end of the stock market crash, who were still building homes. And he started working with the architects to convince architects to put built-in bookshelves in new homes. Rich people who are still building homes with a bunch of empty bookshelves. What are they going to do? They're going to buy a lot of books to fill up those bookshelves, right? And then he works with home and garden magazines to show how cool and how sexy this is. To make books sexy again, right? By showing how the wealthy, the rich, the famous, the powerful were filling up their homes with books and made everybody else want them. We are in a moment here where the audiobook industry is about to expand in a big way. In the past, you've been thinking about how does a reader with a credit want to spend that credit to fill their shelves, right? In the future, you're going to be thinking, how does this music lover of this genre, this artist, or this podcast lover want to fill this new empty audiobook shelf that they have in an app that they open up every day? So think about what you're doing to make sure that you have content that they want. Because if you think in that way, you're going to win. Thanks. So we have just under 10 minutes for some Q&A, and in the last 1 minute, we are going to raffle off these solar-powered headphones. If you stop by our booth on Monday and signed up, you are on the list, and we'll have Christina come and do a random drawing so you can see all the fairness provably in front of the audience at the end here. So hopefully you're in the audience. If not, we'll contact you later. So we'll take questions now. Thanks.
Hi. What is Spotify's return policy for audiobooks? Hi, Audible.
Spotify's return policy is very reasonable. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I think it's 7 days, and if you haven't listened to 50% of the book, it's public. You can Google it and find it really easy. So fact check me on that. But The fact of the matter is, you want the retailers to have a return policy, because people who really are upset with the book that they found or they didn't buy the right book, like, you don't want to turn them off to the format. You just want a reasonable return policy, and you don't want a return policy that is encouraging people to return books that they loved and enjoyed, right? You're not going to see that from Spotify.
Hi. So I want to start off by saying that from an ebook strategy, I've been wide forever, never been exclusive. But I do have audiobooks through Recorded Books, which is wide, and through Audible Studios, which is exclusive. And I've got new stuff that I'm writing, and obviously I'm at the decision-making point now. I want to believe you. I want to believe you so badly. But I get my royalty reports every quarter, and the amount of money I make off Audible is insignificant.
The amount of money you make outside of Audible.
Outside of Audible. I make, I've
through
literally...
Through your recorded books.
Yes, look, I made more than $1 million in audiobooks in royalties coming back to me. But the amount of that money that has come outside of Audible is peanuts. Overdrive, libraries, audiobooks.com, etc. I'm just, when I look at going forward, I probably will not be with Audible Studios or Recorded Books. I will probably be being completely independent. And when I look at a 40% royalty versus a 20% royalty, it's a huge leap of faith for me to go wide in audiobooks. So I guess I don't really so much have a question. I mean, you've basically said a lot of it here. But I want to believe you. I want to know that this is happening. But my Recorded Books representatives have been telling me for years. It's going to be better. It's going to be better because we have a wide distribution. But I'm telling you, my royalty reports don't see it. So, I guess I don't really have a question. It's kind of more of just a statement, and I'm just wondering, outside of what you presented, if you have any additional things you could do to address that.
Well, I have two thoughts. One, I would be interested to see how it works when you control books, right? Our platform is all about control. There's a lot that you can do when you have total control of the book. So I wonder what your wide experiment looked like when you self-published versus going through Recorded Books.
That's a very good point.
And I already lost the second one.
Sorry, I shouldn't have spoke.
Everything you think you know is in the past. And a moment like this has never come in the industry before. No player that we have launched in that 5/7 of an exclusivity period has been anywhere near the scale of Spotify.
True.
So the world going forward is going to look a lot different than the world of the past. And so I think the math will follow.
Good points. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have kind of a two-part question. So I like your points are very good regarding serialization and shorter attention spans, and I'm wondering if that is you spitballing or if any of that is coming from Spotify.
This is me spitballing.
Okay.
Yeah, you're talking to me right now.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yep.
Do you know of any plans for Spotify to maybe serialize audiobooks to maybe sell chapter by chapter or in smaller increments? Because that does sound like a good idea.
If I did know, I wouldn't be able to comment anyway. But as me, Will, spitballing with you, brilliant authors, I'm telling you that if something were to be coming, you don't have to wait for it if you take some of the advice I gave you today. Because there's some ways that you can mimic it and start to learn faster than the rest of the industry within the existing guide rails that are out there today.
Right, it's just in the existing product structure, you're putting out a 10-hour audiobook and then having breaks for recaps before each chapter, within one large thing that they've purchased feels clunky.
It does, but it's a good way to learn fast. And I'm a big fan of learning as much as you can, even at the expense of some elegance. But great points and great questions. I'd love to talk to you more later about that.
My question is really similar. Can you, in the platform right now, go in and break up your book into multiple episodes and sell them individually?
You'd have to create a new audiobook for each one, and each one would have to kind of have its beginning and ending credits, but you could absolutely do that today.
And is there a way to link them together and like books in a series?
You could put them as a series, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a recommendation for pricing structure on a 1 to 2 hour episode?
Small. Small. I mean, like, look, if you're breaking a 10-hour book into 10 one-hour chunks, each one should be pretty small. But ideally, it would add up, if they get all 10, to more than the cost of the actual audiobook. But I don't have any data on that. Like I said, I don't see anybody doing this. So what I'm trying to do today is to inspire some fresh thinking and some experiments. And if anybody does try this, please email me. Please get in touch, because I want some case studies. I want to track the success and really, we're not a publisher. We don't control content. I can't just go acquire this and do it myself. I want to inspire you all to experiment. So this, the advice that I gave is in no way proven. There's no way I'm a golden ticket. But it's where I see the industry going. It's where I see the opportunity in the future, and I would love to help you figure that out along the way. Thanks. We have 3 minutes left, so probably everyone in line we can get to.
Short question.
Yeah.
Spotify doesn't currently support purchasing in-app for the audiobooks. What are their plans to roll it out?
Yeah, you can read a lot about this on the internet. There's a lot of stuff going back and forth between Spotify and Apple, and I just encourage you to kind of Google that and learn about some of the reasons why the purchase flow isn't as optimized as we'd like it to be.
Okay, I guess the plan is that going to be an option in the future? Because if I'm going on Spotify on my phone and I'm going to buy a book and I can't buy it there, I'm not going to pull out my laptop to buy a book.
Yeah,
So
Spotify is committed to having the best experience in the industry, in the world. It's not there yet, but we're not going to lie down and stop trying.
You can't do it on Audible either. You can't do it on any app.
Yeah. Okay, that was the question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, kind of a logistical question. Is there a QA check at Findaway Voices? I record my own audio files, and so if I have passed QA through ACX, will I basically automatically pass QA through Findaway, or is there a completely different process?
Yeah, good question. We do have a QA check. We check every title that comes through, both on publish and republish. If you meet ACX's tech specs, you're good with us.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Hello. I have a couple of comments actually. One is on the Netflix model. What they do is actually kind of brilliant, going along with the intro and outro and doing the recaps. They automatically, you can set a little button or whatever, and automatically plays and skips the intro and the recap. So that would be how you would be able to set it up structurally, is give them a heads up in the beginning that they can just skip through these things as they're going or something like that, until it's implemented technologically where the uploader doesn't have to do that, where we don't have to do that. The other thing is that the social engineering that is going on, which is lowering the attention spans, that's actually a designed thing. It's in the studies, it's people who do long form, they are more appreciated. People actually like to listen to podcasts because they're long form. TikTok and those things are popular, and that is where technology is going, because it is a massive movement, and Spotify is going to be a good Amazon killer when it comes to what they're going to be doing on audiobooks. It's that is a brilliant way that they're expanding, so that is definitely going to be very viable. I was just very appreciative of your whole thing, so that's very nice.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, one last question, then we're going to do the Wheel of Fortune here for the headphones.
So off the top of your head, I know this, you don't have a date on this yet, but if you could have a word count for an ideal chapter length and or an ideal audio time frame. Even if the
10 to 20,000 words is going to be 1 to 2 hours of audio.
So you think that's an ideal chapter?
I think that's a good place to start an experiment. Yeah. All right, we are out of time. Christina's going to roll the dice.